So Justin McCarthy here. I'm very pleased to be here representing both PRMIA and the risk profession. I think one of the most important things here is that this is part of a collaboration. And if you think back to some of the comments that Peter made a few minutes ago, it was from that statement about different NGOs all working on different standards and so on. And I fear that if PRMIA went to work on something on its own like this, if the ACCA and others went to work on this, we end up with a multitude of different standards and just more confusion. So this is something that makes this very important to us in PRMIA and from working with the people here. I have to admit that this is part of several years of relationships, which is something that I think is going to be important for pushing forward this initiative. So Peter, I've known for a long time, and he has been tirelessly working on risk accounting for quite a while. And it was something that I wanted to be able to work with him on and to bring some resources to. And in my role now as a CEO of PRMIA, I've just been here for just under a year. This is something that I started to look at, but having Rachel's energy and the help from the ACCA has really helped that as well. And I think then handing through to our friends in ACC North America has made this really possible. So related to that as well, we've been having a lot of discussions with our friends in Durham and those of us who make up the Risk Accounting Standards Board. And really, when we were talking about this back in the summer, it was looking at having something that could actually be used, something that you can take in your hand and use. And I think this workshop is going to be so important over the next, over today and tomorrow, is understanding this and going and using this and trying to kick the tires, as the saying goes, and make sure that this is something you want to use. So seeing this become something that people can take away and work with is going to be very important. I'm sure if it's successful, many people want to have a ownership of it and do it and so on, but it's not going to be successful if you don't ask questions over the next few days, make sure that you understand what this is and bring good feedback to us. I think technically I'm meant to be giving a response to Peter, but I'll respond to some things that Stephen and Rachel said as well. I know Rachel mentioned my brother who's an ACCA member. I think really what I found as a risk manager over the last decade or so or two has been having accountants on your side, especially for operational risk, is something that's important. And I actually started working in operational risk formally with Merrill Lynch just as the GFC, as we call it, the Great Financial Crisis, was taking place. One of my first bosses there was an accountant. She'd come from Goldman and worked and was my boss for the first few months in Merrill Lynch. And I found that operational risk, you have to have an understanding of accounting if you're going to be able to do this. That's given me a great respect for accountants. And rather than us trying to find some new way forward, I think it's important that we as risk managers in PRMIA are partnering with people who know much more about accounting than us. And I think it's fair to say the ACCA has a great set of risk leaders as part of their membership, but they've been good enough and kind enough to reach out to another risk body and ourselves to ensure that we're taking a global view on all of this. In answer to some things that Peter said, a lot of this is not about how we're going to manage risks. Us risk managers will keep doing what we want to do and hopefully do it in a good way, but it's how we report this, how we work on this in our organizations and so on. And I think that's something that I know when I was a chief risk officer previously, I seem to spend most of my time and most of my team's time filling out returns and so on and so forth and justifying and quantifying what we do. And that's something that's really important that we're a part of the future for that. One last thing then, Steve mentioned zombie companies, and here in PRMIA we had a Risk Leaders Summit a few weeks ago, and Professor Ralph Altman, who famously invented or discovered, I don't know which, the Z score, he gave us an excellent talk about zombie companies. And suddenly I'm hearing that word mentioned again, and I'm thinking of that NFR line that Peter had in his presentation that he gave a short while ago. And I'm kind of starting to realize that a lot of things we're hearing from the finance field, from the accounting field, from the risk field, I'm hearing all those things talked about here today. So I think we're definitely doing something important here. We're collaborating between different organizations, different areas. Risk managers will keep doing what they're meant to do. And if I'm a chief risk officer, I'll have my job. But if I can go and have a chat with the person who's in charge of accounting, typically maybe the CFO, and we can work together, we can find ways that we're not doubling up and doing extra work. I think that's important. So I guess I'll finish with that call to action. You have an opportunity, you've registered here, you're going to hear a lot today and tomorrow. Follow up on this, use this as something. I know I was chatting with a software company last week and they were presenting the usual risk management software and so on. But maybe someone out there, if you're running a risk department or you have risk management, you know, the old spreadsheet that helps you do everything, maybe bolt this on and see if it works for you. And if this is something that works, then you're part of the future. And that's something that's important to all of us here. So with that, Rachel, I'll hand back to you and thank you very much for having me here today.